Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Comic Source Comic Boom collaboration. This is your DC Spotlight for the week of June 6, 2023. If anybody's a new listener that I got a chance to meet at Phoenix Fan Fusion this last weekend, came to one of the panels I hosted, welcome. Good to have you. Thanks for showing up at the panel. Thanks for tuning in. Collaborating with my partner here, Rocky from Comic Boom, to talk about the DC books that are dropping this week. Not necessarily the biggest week in terms of number of issues that came out, but a couple of really big issues, especially the Milestone Initiative that was like 100 pages. So still a lot of good content. Overall, I thought it was an okay week. Nothing really blew me away. But I didn't think anything was, outright terrible either. So yeah, I don't know. What do you think overall, Rock?
I'm optimistic. The dawn of the DCU is well underway, and this continues the general feeling of optimism that I have with most of the titles. And I'm actually while I only skim read the New Talent Showcase, I would like to do a full head-on review in more detail of the Milestone Initiative. I was even impressed with, I read only 2 stories in that one, but I was impressed with what I read for, considering they're new writers. And yeah, and the rest of them, Flash 800, the big Milestone issue. Batman has some very interesting developments. We got the 11th issue of Dark Knights of Steel. And, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling more optimistic than not. I'll still have some rants, mini rants I'll go on, but I'm sure you will too. So we'll have some fun.
Yeah, it's interesting. I got a chance to talk to a couple of DC creators this weekend. Tom King was one of the Vision. I know it's a Marvel character, obviously, and that's what the panel was focused on. Because Paul Bettany was there at the show as well, doing signing autographs and giving photo opportunities and what have you. But yeah, I talked to Tom a little bit about what's going on over at DC and how he's feeling. And then Dan Didio was there, so obviously we caught up a little bit. I talked to Dan just a few weeks ago when he was on the show. We spent a good hour after we recorded just catching up. But it was good to see him in person, and he reiterated some stuff to me. So it's an interesting place for DC right now. I feel like editorially they're starting to find their footing. Obviously, there are still issues, but man, they're still, and again, through no fault of their own, they're still a little hamstrung by the decisions that are being made by the parent, the company that's calling the shots now, right? AT&T bought them, still owns a controlling interest, but they're letting Discovery, make all the decisions as far as allocating resources, what shows they exhibit at, which basically is no shows. They're not exhibiting anywhere because they're trying to recoup all that money that AT&T spent to buy DirecTV. And, I'm sorry, DC Comics should not be expected to make a sizable contribution to that debt. That's just not realistic. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe if whatever decisions James Gunn is making, whatever he's planning out for the DC cinematic universe, maybe that will help to move the needle a little bit, and DC will get to start exhibiting that shows some more. I mean, that's my hope. I sort of have my doubts. I mean, DC is not Marvel. It never has been. I don't know that you'll ever see a $1 billion DC movie the way you do with Marvel. It's just the universe is not built that way. So anyway, that's a whole nother topic. We could do a whole multi-hour podcast episode on that. So instead, let's dive into books. As Rocky mentioned, New Talent Showcase, the Milestone Initiative. It's 100 pages. There's a ton of stories in here. I'm going to go through all of the creators for all 12 stories. There is a little bio for each creator in the back of the book. I encourage you to check that out. And when I say each creator, it's the writers and the artists. So there were 12 writers, there were 12 artists. They went through this program. It's all explained by a foreword from Reginald Hudlin, who's one of the founders of the original Milestone, is heavily involved in the current iteration. He gives all the rundown of what they did and how it was all set up, and then we've got the stories in there. So the first one is Third Wheel, written by Ashley Allen. Yasmin Flores Montanez is the penciler, Walden Wan on inks, Brian Valenza on colors. Blood in the Water by Cheryl Lynn Eaton. As the writer, Ataguin Ilhan does the pencils, Wade von Grobinger on inks, Brian Valenza on colors, often imitated by Jared A. Lujan. Cameron White does the pencils, LeBeau Underwood on inks, Luis Guerrero on colors. Ablution by Greg Burnham. Marcus Smith does the pencil, Roberto Paggi on inks, Luis Guerrero on colors. Makings of You by Jared Rice Pratt is the writer. Damian Hampton does pencils, Anthony Fowler Jr. on inks, Hi-Fi on colors. Every World Fades by Zipporah Smith as writer. Lucas Silveira does the pencils, John Livesey on inks, and Alex Gormaz on colors. Patria y Vida by Julio Anta as writer. Andrea Rosales does the pencils, Scott Hanna on inks, and Andrew Dahlhaus on colors. Who's Left Behind, written by Morgan Hampton. He's the current writer on the Cyborg series. Tia Ankam does pencils, Jose Marzan Jr. on inks, Chris Sotomayor on colors. The Hate You Live by writer Jerome Rett. Patterson Oliveira does the pencils, Wade von Grobinger on inks, Hi-Fi on colors. Something Sweet by Nathan Kayanin. He's the writer. Gregory Maldonado does pencils, Anthony Fowler Jr. on inks, Michael Attea on colors. Family Values by Jordan Clark as writer. Miguel C. Hernandez on pencils, Jose Marzan Jr. on inks, Andrew Dahlhaus on colors. And finally, My Brother's Keeper by Dorado Quick as writer. Charles Stewart III on pencils, Dexter Vine on inks, Nick Filardi on colors. So overall, I would say I was pretty impressed with these stories. As I was reading them, I read the first one. I was like, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good story. It stars Static and Rocket. They're sort of teaming up, and these are sort of out of continuity. The stories might not necessarily fit in with the continuity that we've seen so far in the current iteration of the Milestone universe. Reginald Hudlin explains that in the foreword, saying basically they just wanted these writers to set their stories in the Milestone universe with Milestone characters, but not be beholden to any continuity that's necessarily going on right now. So it's a pretty fun story of the team up, and it plays a little bit with kind of the flirtatious relationship that Static and Icon have. So I got done reading that. I was like, that's pretty good. I wonder if that's going to be my favorite story. And then the next one, Blood in the Water, written by Cheryl Lynn Eaton. The art, the pencils by Ataguin Ilhan are fantastic. I finished reading that, and I was like, oh, that's really good. Maybe that's going to be my favorite story. And that was sort of a recurring theme as I was going through these. Often Imitated is the next one by Jared Lujan. Absolutely fantastic with Hardware basically fighting an automated version of himself that Avila built from, pilfering his designs that were still left at Alva Industries. And then the Ablution story by Greg Burnham. Again, I read that and then I'm like, man, I think that's my favorite. That one may have stuck when I thought that, because it's a story of Icon way back in the 1800s when he was 1863 in Richmond, Virginia, when he was attacked. He was trying to lead, not necessarily a slave revolt, but lead enslaved people to their freedom, and everything that went along with kind of the upheaval with the Civil War and all that, and talks about him immortal, but the woman that he spends his wife with, never says they're actually married, but she's basically his wife. She's aging, he's not, and everything that goes along with that. So that was fantastic. The art and colors in that one are amazing as well. So I think that one may have been my favorite story. But again, as I was reading these, each time I'd come across a new story and I'd read it and I'd think, oh man, maybe that's my favorite. The next story introduced a character. I don't know if he was around in the first iteration of the Milestone universe, but it was really, really interesting. I'm trying to find the character's name. He seemed to be French. He was kind of speaking in this sort of French-English combination. He captured Curtis Metcalf captured Hardware, and he was doing the zombiosis thing to him. And then it's hinted at the end that this character, perhaps his civilian identity, is moving into Dakota City with some technology. And it's sort of clear to us, this guy, Luke Marcellus, this young tech genius that some people are calling the Haitian Mark Zuckerberg, obviously, or apparently I think it's pretty obvious to us that he's this sort of tech zombie voodoo guy, but it's definitely doesn't appear to be clear to Curtis Metcalf. So again, I'm trying to find the character's name because he was really interesting to me, and I'm sure it's in
Luke
here.
Marcellus.
Yeah, that's the actual name of his civilian identity. But I thought that there was a like Zombie Master or something. Yeah, I just don't know if he ever says what he calls himself. But he's talking about working with the Necro Code and um, talks about interfacing with a person's subconsciousness and all that. So yeah, maybe he doesn't ever say what his sort of villainous identity name is, but I thought it was an interesting character. And again, I'm sure it's a version of a previous Milestone character from the first go round. I'm not really sure. Um, then the next story, again, they're characters I'm just not really familiar with. Uh, Mike and Nathan, I think their names are, but I'm not sure, not familiar enough with the characters. Every World Fades, it's called, but it is a very heartfelt story. And then the next one, I thought the art was absolutely fantastic. It stars Tech from Blood Syndicate, and it's actually in the time between him leaving the army but having gotten his powers and him going back to Paris Island. So I thought that one was really strong. That one's by Julio Anta, who's a writer whose Image series that he did last year I reviewed. So I wasn't surprised that one was really strong. And then the next one is sort of about grief and finding things that you can hold on to and how sometimes mementos of the past can mean a lot to us. And that one starred Rocket. I thought that was pretty strong as well, by Jerome Rett. And then the next one dealt with bang babies in particular, and a guy who gained powers when that happened but lost his son in the same event, and how he's out for revenge, and again teaming up Static and Rocket and their relationship and them trying to decide the best way to move forward. So that was pretty strong as well. The art may have been a little stronger than the writing. I think the pacing on that one could have been
That's the Hate You Live you're referring
yeah,
to.
yeah. That's the one by Jerome Rett. I think I inadvertently credited Jerome Rett for the one about mementos. That wasn't Jerome Rett, actually. That one was written by Morgan Hampton, the current writer of the Cyborg series. And then the next story dealt with Icon and how he was willing to do some work for the U.S. government during the Vietnam War for the agreement that they would leave him alone, and how even though he was lied to, and a lot of people were lied to in the Vietnam War and in that conflict, but ultimately you look for the silver lining, you look for the good that you're able to do. That one was written by Nathan Kayanen, and that one I felt was really strong. Anthony Fowler art, very fine lines, solid art there. And then the next one I really, really enjoyed, probably my second favorite, because it features the birth of Static, of Virgil Hawkins and his family, and it jumps forward in time. Again, showing throughout, and it's called Family Values, showing throughout how important family is, at least to this version of Virgil Hawkins, this version of Static. It's absolutely fantastic. The first version, I think he was raised by his mother. His dad wasn't around anymore. She was a single parent. This time, I love that they chose to have a strong family. His dad's there, his mom, his sister. So that one by Jordan Clark and Miguel C. Hernandez, I thought was really, really great. And the final one, My Brother's Keeper by Dorado Quick. First of all, great pencils by Charles Stewart III. And it stars this guy named Eben, whose brother has been kidnapped by some sort of evil organization, evil corporation. We're not exactly sure who it is, but they're basically exploiting bang babies. They're kidnapping them, studying them, and what have you. He has sort of shadow-based powers, and his brother's name is Adam Evans. His name's Ivan Evans, and he's out there looking for his brother, doing whatever he can to try to find them. So find his brother. Really strong art, really interesting character. A character who basically, like, he breaks into one of these facilities, and there's other bang babies that are there in prison that are calling out to him, "Hey, help us, help us, help us." He's like, I'm not going to make this mistake my father did, because his father used to try to help everybody, and it ended up leading to his father's death. He's like, I only care about myself. He's really focused on saving his brother to the detriment of everybody else. So if you get in his way, look out. So I thought that one was really strong as well. And again, the art by the line work by Charles Stewart III was was really fantastic. So I expect we'll see more of this Eben character somewhere in the pages of Milestone, even though, like I said, these aren't necessarily in continuity. Really strong work by Dorado Quick. And then, yeah, you take the time to buy this, you take the time to read it. Again, take a look at those bios. Everybody has a picture, gives a little description of what they've done so far, and schooling and education, and where they hope to go in the future. So overall, I thought it was a pretty strong showing.
Yeah,
And again, that
yeah,
Milestone Initiative was a very worthwhile endeavor for DC.
yeah. I just a couple comments I have is Reginald Hudlin at the forward. He talked about how these stories aren't in continuity, but I just want to make a commentary on that aspect of it, because what I couldn't help thinking. Like, I only read the first two stories and I thought they were good, and I thought both those first two stories, and I can't speak for the rest of it, but I suspect every single story in this compilation is better than every single Lazarus Planet offshoot story that we were subjected to painfully, which are stories that were A, terrible, and B, in all of them in continuity, unfortunately. Uh, I wish that Reginald Hudlin would have made these stories, or had the writers put these in continuity in the Milestone universe. I think they should have just went ahead and done that. I understand that it's not the purpose of this, it's the new talent showcase, but quite frankly, I don't think it takes particularly a lot of talent to own up on reading background for the Milestone universe. It's not like there's a lot of comics to read. I mean, really, to get own up on what the current continuity is. Because all these writers, at least, well, the two stories that I read, I mean, this is fun. You and I enjoy reading the Milestone universe. We're one of the probably two very few reviewers that actually read them. Okay, now granted, I never had time to read this, but I'm going to read it all, and I'm going to buy it. It's on my pull list. It's on my pull list because it's a new universe. It's a structured universe, and now it does have new writers, and we got to give these new writers a chance. And we can be critical of new writers, but they're learning the ropes. But I think there's no reason why, if they're learning the ropes, put them into continuity. Put them into continuity. Do that. I think they can't be any worse than what DC threw some even seasoned writers on the Lazarus Planet backups as an example, and I thought they did a subpar job for the most part. So that's just my commentary. But the talent, I love the way they're promoting them. I mean, pictures of all the writers in the back. That's how you promote talent. That's how you promote it. And let the quality speak for itself. Let the quality speak for itself. And at least for the first two stories, it does. And it sounds like you enjoyed the rest of it. So I'm looking forward to reading the rest of it.
Yeah, my thought probably is why they didn't have it in continuity is just because it was such a long runway. These are short stories. These writers worked on them for 10 months. So
Yeah.
had they read everything that came out, for the current iteration of Milestone at the beginning, and then wrote their story, by the time the story came out, now there's something that might have changed. So I think that's why they told them, don't worry about what continuity is, because again, that's typically not going to be the same sort of runway. You're not going to have 10 months for a short story. But I don't know how often, the Milestone Initiative got to meet up, or again, 10 months is a really long time. So I got to imagine that's why they chose to not have it in continuity, or at least give themselves that out. Because if you say it's continuity, and then, they write something that doesn't necessarily make sense, and then they have people calling them out on that, that's kind of disheartening as a writer. If you write something really good that you're really proud of, and then you're getting a bunch of crap because it doesn't necessarily fit in continuity. Probably don't need to subject writers to that right off the bat. And again, that's purely speculation on my part, whether that's why they chose to say, yes, they're not in continuity. It's just my guess. But yeah, typically that's not what you're going to see. You're not going to see 10 months of time for a short story. That's just, it's not realistic. Obviously, publisher couldn't stay in business if it took that long to get every book out. So, all right, well, let's move on. Up next, I don't imagine it's going to take that long to cover this. No pun intended. The Joker Uncovered #1. And I saw an article on a comic site that was like, DC's finally done it. It's a comic of covers. I'm like, why are you talking about this like this is the first time this has happened? They did this with Harley Quinn a few months ago. So maybe you missed that, but Anyway, it's the Joker uncovered, and it's literally just a comic book with a bunch of covers, variant covers of different Joker titles. There's a few pages interspersed here or there with the Joker breaking the fourth wall, talking to us and talking about these various covers. So, I mean, some of them are nice to look at. I'm not the biggest Joker fan, as fans of the longtime listeners of the podcast will know. So, for me, this was kind of just flip through and didn't take me too long to consume this. So, I don't know. Anything to add, Rocky?
Well, it's actually, in my view, it's a testament of just how, frankly, it's a testament to how bad the comic book industry has gotten. That because that they have to collect these covers, and that because a lot of these covers you can't buy for a regular price because they might be on a ratio variant, because there's too many ratio variants and there's too many variant covers and they're overpriced, and it's sad. I think it's really sad that we're paying money. I mean, and especially if they're reprints of covers. Why is I would hope that this comic book $1? I hope this comic book's only $1, but I suspect it's probably $3.99. It might even be $4.99 or $5.99. Why? It's just a bunch of covers. Whoop-de-doo. Covers which, when they first came out, had nothing to do with the content of the comic. It's just to show off the art, and I get that, but it's just, I'm venting. I rant about variant covers and ratio covers, and of course I'm a little bit hypocrite as well, because I do occasionally buy them, of course, but I don't like the fact that I occasionally buy them and make a hypocrite out of myself. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean, again, no way it's $1. I'll sort of play devil's advocate. I mean, there may be people that want some of these covers and couldn't afford them because they were ratios. So this is a way for them to have them, but it's not the same. It's not the same. But if you want to be able to have the artwork to look at, if you're a Joker fan, or if you're a fan of some of these artists, maybe you want to pick this up. I'm a huge Lee Bermejo fan. I'm still not picking this up because I just don't care much for the Joker. But again, this is a way for people that may not have been able to get these covers to get them. So, all right, moving on. Batman 136, Dusk Till Dawn, written by Chip Zdarsky, art by Belen Ortega, colors by Tomeo More, lettered by Clayton Cowles. There also is a backup story. It's also written by Chip Zdarsky. I guess it kind of stars Batman, but kind of more R. The art is by Jorge Corona, colors by Ivan Placencia, letters by Clayton Cowles. I don't know if it's purposeful from Corona, but we get a lot less of that ink splatter that I always complained about that he did on Batgirls. He still does it here. In a way, it works here a lot better, especially when it's Zur-En-Arrh in the Batcave building things, and there's all kinds of detritus and whatnot. So it sort of works a little better. But the art feels more mature. The line work feels a little more developed. So that's fine. The main story focuses on Bruce. He's back from his journey through the multiverse that we saw last issue. He's hiding the fact that he lost his hand, a robot hand. He has a robot hand now. I had sort of forgotten that, or maybe didn't even notice it that much. I have to admit to not noticing how big of a deal it was, because all of a sudden now it's a huge deal that he lost his hand and he's hiding it from the rest of his family. And I was like, wait, he lost his hand? And there's even a little blurb or something that says happened in 134. I literally went back to issue 134, where supposedly he lost his hand to this, alternate universe Ghostmaker. And I flipped through and found the panel where the hand was cut off. And I was like, I kind of missed that the first time. And then and I'm kicking myself because then in 135, it's very apparent that he's lost his hand. Batman 900 legacy number. It's very apparent he lost his hand. He's walking around. It's bandaged up. He puts like just kind of almost like a mace-like apparatus on it at one point. And then when he's traveling through the different multiverses, it's kind of the old version, the Legends of the Dark Knight, like the first Frank Miller Legends of the Dark Knight version of Batman that gives him the robot hand. And it was so like obvious and important, but it wasn't necessarily commented on as much as I would have expected it to be. until we get to this issue and it's a focus. And then I was like, wait, how did I miss that? And again, went and flipped back through and I'm like, wow, yeah, it's right there. How come it never really registered for me? So yeah, Batman has a robot hand. He's hiding it from the rest of the Bat family. And it's clear that even though he's been examined here by Mr. Terrific, by Michael Holt, that there's still something. He's still not healed, but yet partly because I think of what he went through during that trip and how there's multiversal versions of the Jokers out there right now, he's not willing to rest, even to the point where he's disabled the health monitoring systems in his suit, and Oracle asks him at one point, and he doesn't respond. He just thinks to himself, I can't afford to not be Batman. I need to be out here right now. Even though his body, I don't know, might be on the verge of like shutting down. Maybe that's the path that Zdarsky is going to take him down. I'm not sure, but this does feel like it's going in more of a little sort of a street level or more personal direction for the story, which is kind of what I expected Zdarsky to do with Batman from the start. But instead we got Batman jumping off the moon and doing crazy, fantastical things. So I don't know, maybe now we're getting to the street level stuff. I'm not sure, but I thought it was an okay issue. Probably one of my more liked issues with that tone, with it feeling like it's going to be a little more personal. And Batman does, he's asking for developments. Hey, what happened while I was gone? He learns about the Penguin twins. And in fact, he learns in this issue that he didn't really kill the Penguin, which Selina knew but didn't tell him. And so there's that aspect of it as well when you want to talk about getting into some emotion. I like the Bell and Ortega art in terms of line work and storytelling. I don't know that the tone of the art is really suiting the story. I feel like it's something that maybe needs a little, I'm not sure. The art that Bellin does feels a little more animated to me, like animation style, a little, I don't know, happy and vibrant and lighter. And that's not what this story is. So I wonder if it was the best choice artistically, but technically the art is fantastic. And I'm looking forward to seeing more of Zur-En-Arrh. I'm really starting to like that version of Batman. So what were your thoughts on the issue, Rocky?
I really enjoyed this. I thought the art was fantastic. I love this artistic style. It works for me. There's some major revelations here. For one thing, I mean, Zur-En-Arrh, like, I'm wondering what is... Bruce Wayne seems to be compromised here. He's back from the other universe, but clearly, who's in charge of the body here? Is it Bruce Wayne or is it Zur-En-Arrh? Zur-En-Arrh actually tells Bruce Wayne in the Battle of the Minds that Zur-En-Arrh tells him, he goes, you need me for what's coming. Well, what's coming? What does Zur-En-Arrh know that Batman doesn't? What does the Zur-En-Arrh side of Batman's psyche know that Batman doesn't? Well, that's hinted at, of course, in the backup, because it's also hinted at in the main story, because Selina never told Batman that Penguin is actually still alive until this issue. Well, it was because Penguin was believed to be killed that Failsafe was activated in the first place. So when Failsafe finds out that the Penguin is in fact not been killed, why did Failsafe get activated in the first place? Well, this is directly linked to the backup, which we have to mention because the backup has Zur-En-Arrh programming. It shows the background of Zur-En-Arrh programming Failsafe and basically saying, look, if you're 95% certain that Batman has killed someone, you're activated. And then Failsafe says, fine, okay, I'm activated if I'm 95% sure if Batman's killed somebody. Of course, the 5% was the reality. Penguin's still alive. But then in the backup, Failsafe asks Zur-En-Arrh, well, what do I do after I kill Batman? Well, and that's where the backup ends. While Zur-En-Arrh says, well, I'm going to come back and program you. So what we don't know is, first of all, where is Failsafe? Where'd Failsafe go? What was Failsafe's programming? Zur-En-Arrh programmed Failsafe. Well, where's Failsafe now? Failsafe completed his programming, i.e. he killed Batman. But did he in fact complete his programming? What was the default? After he kills Batman, what was Failsafe to do? That's something we still need to discover. And what's particularly interesting here is that I'm questioning is Chip Zdarsky, is he completely fooled all of us? Has this entire story been complete misdirection? The main story ends here with Bruce Wayne hallucinating his entire Batman family burning to death in front of him. Is this a massive dream? Who's in control of the psyche? Is it Zur-En-Arrh? Was Batman ever in control? Is this going to be like the old episode of Dallas that wakes up and this has all been a dream? God forbid. I don't think Zdarsky would do that, but I'm really curious to see, okay, now what happened here? Zur-En-Arrh, I think the Zur-En-Arrh Batman, the Batman of Zur-En-Arrh, I don't think he's surprised by what happened. I think maybe the Batman of Zur-En-Arrh is the mastermind behind all this. If he programmed failsafe and he knows what's coming and Zur-En-Arrh is warning Batman, you need to be strong because you're weak now. You need to be strong because you don't know what's coming. What the hell is coming? What don't we know? I'm really curious. I'd love to know anybody's got a theory as to where this is headed. Or is Zdarsky, he's got something close to his chest that he's going to, is he going to pull the rug out from the readers here? I'm looking forward to this. And you can already see the seeds of Selina, of the Batman Catwoman war that's coming up. Selina, Batman is livid with Selina. She never told him. Selina never told Batman that Oswald Cobblepot is still alive, that he left the city, and that his kids took over. Well, like if Selina had told Batman that, well, then maybe failsafe would know, because Zur-En-Arrh would know, and failsafe wouldn't have been activated. But Selina didn't, because she's still keeping secrets from Batman, and their relationship is, of course, remains dysfunctional. And you got to wonder further if the future Batman Catwoman war, is that going to be Catwoman versus Batman or Catwoman versus the Batman of Zur-En-Arrh? I don't know. I got all these questions, but I love the questions I'm asking, and I just hope that the answers end up being interesting. So, yeah, I love this. This is one of my favorite comics this week.
Yeah, it was, like I said, really strong. So we'll see where it goes from here. Been a lot of creators, big name creators that have been shuffling around on books, but no hints of Zdarsky leaving Batman anytime soon. He is done with Daredevil, so maybe he's going to be focusing on Batman along with his creator-owned stuff for the foreseeable future. We'll see. All right, up next, Peacemaker Tries Hard, issue 2, trying even harder now. Written by Kyle Starks, Steve Pugh is the illustrator, Jordi Belair on colors, Becca Carey on letters. Again, Black Label book, definitely not for the faint of heart. There's a cover that homages Lethal Weapon 2, which I thought was interesting. But yeah, it was a fun issue. What'd you think?
I thought, well, look, if you're a fan of the Peacemaker and the Suicide Squad movie and the HBO series Peacemaker, this will be right up your alley. And the writer Kyle Starks, I mean, really imitates the voice. Peacemaker has the same voice as the Peacemaker in the HBO series here, and I found this funny. There was a couple of laugh out loud moments for me. This is the Peacemaker's been hired by the Brain and Mala to extract or to get a hold of Deathstroke's DNA. And at the end of last issue, we thought that would mean that Peacemaker would end up confronting Deathstroke this issue. That ends up not being the case. The Brain and the Mala just want Peacemaker. They consider him an idiot, a dunce, but of course Peacemaker doesn't know that they consider him a moron. And so they, the Brain basically, the Brain and Mala basically, they use him to get to a facility, to break into a facility where Deathstroke's DNA is being kept. And ultimately, it's the journey they go through to get there that's kind of funny, because Peacemaker ends up being, a bunch of school kids, punk out Peacemaker. There's kind of a funny scene where Peacemaker is looking at different helmets, and one helmet actually makes a guy get flaccid, or it'd be like every guy knows if you get doused with cold water, what happens to your private parts. There's one helmet that does that, and there's another helmet that is an FUCK beam, and there's some vulgarity here, and there's a lot of jokes being made by Peacemaker and by the writer here in terms of what all these helmets do, and a lot of them do crazy things, but we can only speculate on. The one helmet that does what I just mentioned is called shrinkage. There's another F helmet. I mean, again, the writer's trying to have fun with that here. The art's fantastic. Steve Pugh's art is fantastic. But at the end of the day, I mean, they fight this demolition team, and there's a lot of fisticuffs going on, and there's a lot of craziness. There's a lot of this actually feels like I wish actually Harley Quinn was this refreshingly funny. This is entertainment to me. This was entertainment. This was a fun read, and the art is fantastic. And at the end, of course, Peacemaker's made to look like a complete and utter fool, and he's betrayed by the Brain and the Mala, and it ends seemingly with Peacemaker looking like he's dead, but I'm sure that's not the case. And I think there's only one issue to go here. It's 3 issues long, so it's entertaining. This is fun. If you're a fan of Peacemaker HBO, you probably definitely want to pick this up. And I kudos to the covers. The covers here are the 2 covers are fantastic. So what do you think?
Man, I loved it. Right, like again, I haven't seen the Suicide Squad movie. I haven't seen the Peacemaker TV show, but this is just, as you said, laugh out loud funny. It's just laugh out loud funny, and it's not just the Peacemaker being funny. It's Mashur Mala pretending not to speak English because he doesn't want to talk to Peacemaker. He's like, why would I want to talk to this, imbecile? Uh, but even when he does talk, I mean, that's the word he uses. Imbecile. He's like, you hear what this imbecile thinks honey is? You'll die from laughter. Like, why would this guy's just a waste of time, a waste of space. So funny. But even when he does condescend to speak to him, he speaks to him only in French, pretends like he doesn't understand English. And, you mentioned Peacekeeper talking about all the different crazy helmets he has. Yeah, the only thing my dad ever gave me. And in French, Monsieur Mala tells him, yeah, parents, they're the last ones that should have kids. Like, it's just that sort of sense of humor throughout the book. And then even at the end, when Monsieur Mala betrays the Peacemaker and then calls the Brain, says, hey, we got the DNA. I'll be bringing it back to you. The Brain mentions, I'm keeping the dog. I find him delightful. I can't wait to pet him once I have hands again. Like, it's just absolutely hilarious. The Peacemaker is not really dead, even though he took a blast from a Gatling gun to the back. He's going to recover from that. He's going to come after Monsieur Mala and the Brain. And it's just fun. Like, the book is just fun throughout. It's completely ludicrous. It's completely just full of potty humor. Definitely not for kids. Definitely for mature readers. But it's fantastic, and the Steve Pugh art is great. I certainly didn't expect to see the Demolition Team here. They were played for laughs as well. One of them, in the midst of battle, is sitting there eating a sandwich, and the leader, Rosie the Riveter, is calling on him like, hey, come and help us out. He's like, man, you need to take it up with the union rep. Like, that's what I'm telling you. Like, Jack Hammer is the union rep. He's getting choked to death over here. Like, yeah, sorry, can't help. And then after the Peacemaker and Monsieur Mala defeat everybody else, Peacemaker called, hey, lunch break. Because that's the thing, right? Like, this guy won't help because he's in the middle of eating his lunch. I'm obligated, or I'm mandated a 30-minute lunch break every 4 hours. So yeah, I love it. The Peacemaker's like, hey, lunch break. Why don't you tell us where the general keeps the valuables, right? Where this DNA of Deathstroke will be. So it's just, even one-liners like that. It's just really smart humor, really funny, and I'm having a blast with this. Never been a big Peacemaker fan. I don't know that I would enjoy the sort of tongue-in-cheek way that he's portrayed in the movie and the TV show, but who knows? Maybe I would if this is what it is, and you can accept it for that. And then I think you could get a lot of fun out of it. So, all right, moving on, we have the Joker the Joker, the Man Who Stopped Laughing, issue number 9, from Matthew Rosenberg as the writer. Carmine Di Giandomenico is the artist. Romulo Fajardo Jr. on colors. Backup is also written by Matthew Rosenberg. Francesco Francavilla on art, lettering by Tom Napolitano. Things seem like they're starting to come together. I love the interaction between one of the Jokers and Killer Croc in this issue. Killer Croc really tells it like it is. My feeling of how people really feel about the Joker, right? We have the one out in LA. He's on his way back. He's only a few hundred miles from Gotham City. Then we have the one that stayed in Gotham City that was pretty badly wounded at one point. He's now well on his way to recovery, knows the other one is coming back. He's the one that's in the sewers fighting with Killer Croc. And Killer Croc, like I said, he just tells it like it is. He goes, you know what? You might be the real Joker. He might be the real Joker. We know you guys are headed toward this collision course, and you know who the real Joker will be? It'll be the one that survives. But at the end of the day, you know what? Nobody fucking cares who the real Joker is. Nobody likes you. Whether you're the real Joker or he's the real Joker, nobody likes the Joker. I absolutely love it. Killer Croc is saying it like it is. It's how I feel about the Joker. You think that you're feared and, you know, respected by the other criminals in Gotham, and you're some sort of a leader in the villain side. No, that's not the case at all. Everybody knows you're crazy. Everybody hates you. Nobody trusts you. Nobody wants you around. That's exactly how I feel about the Joker. Like, get him out of here. We don't care. And the villains don't care either. And it's great to hear that, right? Because so often in the past, before the Joker was power crept and before he was all over the place, you did see him team up with other villains once in a while, and it was a little more of like a brotherhood, if you will. It's not like that anymore, and this is Killer Croc basically giving voice to that. So I really appreciated that. We also saw the Ravager, Deathstroke's daughter, finish her plan to break Jason Todd um, out of prison, basically, or out of jail. Gotham City PD were transporting him from the Gotham City Police Department headquarters downtown to Blackgate. She rescues him, and we know that he's out to capture the Joker as well. So overall, I thought it was a pretty strong issue. At times, this series has been a little confusing, I'll say, and it seems like it's starting to come together, and I'm hoping it all comes together in the end really well. It may take a reread to really understand what's going on, but I've mentioned before, the Joker could go from being one of my most hated characters to a character that I find really interesting and really like. If somebody could just explain to me this three Jokers thing and make it make sense, and if it's interesting, then I may stop complaining about the Joker being all over the place all the time. So we'll see how that all plays out. As far as the backup goes, interesting as well. Kind of sees Gordon lose his mind. Kind of showcases the fact that Joker can get under your skin. Basically, in the backup, the Joker falls. He falls from a bridge, hits hundreds and hundreds of feet, hits the water. Batgirl saying he's dead. The Joker doesn't believe it. Even when they find Jim Gordon doesn't believe it. Even when they fish the body out of the river, and it's there in front of him, he's like, "Nope, that's a fake. That's not the real Joker." And he sort of loses it. So it's kind of interesting. To the point in the end, he becomes the Joker. He's like, I have to draw him out. I have to get inside his head, and so he dresses himself up to look like the Joker. So pretty interesting. Even from beyond the grave, the Joker manages to get the last laugh on Jim Gordon, and you sort of understand how that could happen, right? Like that was a big premise of the previous Joker series, how the Joker had affected Jim Gordon so much. At every turn, he was a detriment to the people that Jim Gordon loved and trusted, and so you could see how something like this could happen. So interesting backup. What were your thoughts on both stories?
Well, I've sort of zoned out of the main story. I think a couple issues ago. It's to me it just feels like it's dragged on, and I've stopped caring which is the actual Joker or the real Joker. Artistically, I actually, particularly reading this issue, I think the month to month nature of the story has not helped this kind of narrative. I have actually forgotten the differences between these two Jokers. I don't even know which one of these was the one that was shot in the head and which one was. I'm still not. I've long since forgot, and I just don't really care to go back and read it. Probably if I read this all as a trade, it would be better. But this is 6 issues. This is going to be 6 issues too long. We're still at issue 9, and I can't believe there's still going to be 3 more issues that have to be filled in here. But if we're going to get stories like side tracks, like Manhunter shows up, or then Jason Rose shows up and frees Jason Todd, why? Now we got the 2 Jokers, and even the other villains of Gotham City. I think they're insulted a little bit, or I think they're done a disservice with this story, but as if they're just gonna they're taking sides. Some of the villains are siding with one Joker, some are siding with the other Joker. It just seems kind of silly, and and why? why are they doing that? And I guess both Jokers are promising to pay them for their help. Okay, I guess the Joker always finds a way to get rich and pay people who work for him. But just I don't know. It just I don't know. I lost it. I lost the central conceit of this story has long since evaporated for me. The central conceit of, I mean, it was a really cool idea at the beginning that we had over this other guy that I thought it was really cool that some victim, a victim at a bank with a bag over his head, a hostage, gets shot in the head and wakes up thinking he's the Joker, but he isn't. Following that story, I thought I was waiting for a compelling story that we could follow someone we know who isn't the Joker, but thinks he is. I think that would be a cool story, as opposed to the one we've gotten, which is one where both are legitimately think they're the Joker, and I don't know where this story is going, and I just stopped caring. And I'm not saying maybe the ending will be nailed, but even if Rosenberg nails the landing on this, the airstrip's too long. Simple as that. And as far as the end, I love Frank Avella's art. I could have stared at his pictures and his artistic style all day. I like thematically what the story says in the backup. The idea that how many people who become obsessed with the Joker, particularly Jim Gordon or Batman, they always get obsessed with taking Joker down. Even his arch enemies get obsessed with taking him down and defeating him, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, they always end up becoming him. Beware if you go after that, if you go after too hard something, sooner or later, if you fight crime, you're going to become the criminal. And of course, symbolically, metaphorically, that's exactly what Jim Gordon becomes at the end. He becomes the very Joker clown that he's obsessed with taking down. So I thought that it actually had a good, I think, metaphorical element, the backup. But again, I stopped collecting this. I took this off my pull list about 4 or 5 issues ago, actually, and I just, I can't see myself putting it back on anytime soon.
So you won't go back, and you said even if he nails the landing. So even if you enjoy the final,
I can't. No, I mean, there's a couple where if just because you nail the landing, I mean, it doesn't mean I can't. You miss it along the way. I mean, it sort of reminds me a little bit. It's the exact opposite. I've had that experience a few times where I love the journey, but I don't like the ending. Like Why the Last Man. I love the journey. I love the stories. I thought it had a terrible ending. That's where I think SAG is headed for, is a terrible ending, but that's another topic. But this is the opposite. This is way too long a story. Yeah, it had so much potential, and it's lost me as a reader, and it hasn't pulled me back. It hasn't pulled me back in yet. But we'll see. Hey, look, I'll put my foot in my mouth if I have to. But
yeah. So I was gonna say it could pull you back in, and you could be like, well, because I mean the thing is about Matthew Rosenberg. I think he knows he's such a huge fan of the DCU, but his style of writing can be sort of, I don't want to say abstract, but it could be sort of oblique at times. Like he comes at it from a different angle. I just have a feeling if he nails a landing, you go back and reread, some of the things that didn't make sense at the time could start to make sense. But I don't know. I could entirely be giving him too much credit. So I guess we'll see. But that's all right. We don't necessarily agree on that one. I have a feeling we're not going to agree on this one either. Up next, Dark Knight of Steel number 11, written by Tom Taylor. Art is by Yasmin Putri. Colors by Arif Prianto. Letters by Wes Abbott. We're going to get your thoughts first. But before we do, I'm just going to say one thing, which is fuck Amanda Waller.
Yeah.
I'll give more of a review, than just that. But I could just say those 3 words, I guess, and leave it at that.
Well, you and I have, I think it was a couple weeks ago where actually more than a couple weeks ago, more than once Amanda Waller's, she's everywhere. She's been absolutely everywhere in the DC movies and every comic. There was a period of time where Deathstroke was overused and their Joker's overused. And now Amanda Waller, it seems to be Amanda Waller's time for being overused in every continuity. I mean, this is an out of continuity, not in the mainstream. It's Amanda Waller. On Earth, if we end up on Earth 3, it was Amanda Waller. I mean, wherever we end up, it was Amanda Waller. I mean, even in we have a Black Label Suicide Squad book, Suicide Squad and Wildstorm. who's the bad guy? Amanda Waller. I mean, Amanda Waller is she's a gift that keeps on giving. So if you don't like Amanda Waller, you might not be a particular big fan of the Dawn of the DCU, because the big bad of the Dawn of the DCU is Amanda Waller, who is currently trying to get all the villains to kill as many heroes as possible. She's handing out pardons like Halloween candy, apparently. So, but you got to kill a hero. But, you know, it all comes down to the story. We'll see how it turns out. But in this story, Dark Knights of Steel, issue 11 of 12, things are finally starting to come together. All the various houses of the kingdoms, the kingdom of El, the Amazons, the King Pierce, which is, the thunder and lightning land, and Constantine, and all of these heroes, all of these heroic kingdoms are coming together, finally understanding that they have one common enemy, the White Martians, who are led by this individual called Protex. And Protex he's a White Martian, and of course, Martian Manhunter is actually Alfred. Martian Manhunter, when he came to this Earth, disguised himself as Alfred and befriended Bruce Wayne, who was the half-brother of Kal-El. And of course, this series started off so well because there was so much misdirection. We thought it was a very real possibility that Kal-El might be evil. And did Tom Taylor pull another Injustice Superman? Kal-El, he's the evil king here. But no, it ended up to be all misdirection. And I can't help but to be a little bit disappointed in just how happy everybody is. Everybody who is good is good. Everybody who we thought was good is good. And everybody who we could assume would be an asshole is an asshole. And of course, that's Amanda Waller. She betrays the team. Amanda Waller was the head of security for Queen Laura. And of course, she's going to end up being the one who betrays and makes a deal with Protex here at the end. But, one of the criticisms of Tom Taylor, and not everyone agrees with this, but one of the criticisms, I've said it, and some others have certainly said it, that Nightwing is a little bit too happy all the time. I mean, we wanted a feel-good book, but we got great character moments, but where's the plot? Everyone's getting along. Nightwing, it's so goody two-shoes. It's so convenient. The plots aren't sophisticated, but you got great character work to make up for it. Teen Titans, the first issue of the Titans. My God, Wally West dies, and it still kind of feels like a happy-go-lucky issue. By the way, Flash is dead in it. And so here we have everyone. It ends up everybody is now getting along. Everybody that we thought was good. Superman is good. Kal-El is good. Bruce is good. Wonder Woman is good. They're all going to team up. Kal-El, of course, Prince Kal-El. It really is. He's a charming and he's just a great guy. He's releasing all the prisoners that his mother, his King Jor-El and Queen Laura, they imprisoned the Flash. They imprisoned. He even let Green Arrow go, who shot and killed his father, King Jor-El, in the eye. Let them go because Green Arrow was manipulated. Oliver Queen in Dark Knights of Steel was manipulated into killing his father. And so all is forgiven. Of course, the only one who is unforgiving, the only one who is cynical is Amanda Waller. And I got to be honest, ironically enough, Amanda Waller is the only character in this issue that I for sure respect. And it's a character that I'm getting sick of, but at least Amanda Waller is I think understandably cynical, and at least like somebody's got to betray somebody in this issue. I mean, everybody's acting true to form. Where's the misdirection here? Are we going to get any We got it. I guess we got it up front. And now it's all done. Now we're leading into the 12th issue, and we're going to have battles and everything else. And it's probably going to end on a cliffhanger. But I was really hoping for a little bit more. I wanted the plot to be a little bit more unpredictable. This is too convenient for me. And I guess I'm being harsh. By the way, I've really enjoyed the journey. This might be one where I love the journey. I've enjoyed the journey, but 11 and 12 might be meh endings. But I'm being harsh on this maybe a little because I do love this series. I recommend it. And so I'm being a little bit hypocritical here, but I'm just being harsh. I got high standards for Tom Taylor, and I want him to nail the plots as much as he nails the characterizations. He's got the characters down pat. The art here is fantastic. Shout out to Pucci and Prianto, and the color is fantastic. But that's my mini rant. So tell me how you feel about Amanda Waller. You like that character, right?
Oh my God, enough already! Absolutely enough. Can we say she's an out and out villain now, please? Can we just? Everybody uses her that way. God, I can't stand her. She's going to surpass the Joker as my most hated character, 100%. She may already have if I sit here and think about it long enough. But I'm a little surprised. I expected you to sing the praises. A lot of the issues that you have with this are the same things that I'm having, in addition to, when was the last time we had an issue of this? 2 months? 3 months? This has completely lost all momentum
Yeah.
with these late issues. It has complete, and I might be willing more to forgive some of the things you're talking about with the convenience of the plot and a little bit of the issues with the pacing and sort of the up and down tone. I don't think you necessarily touched on that. The up and down tone of the series overall, if it weren't for the lateness. When you add in the lateness, it just becomes a bridge too far for me. And it's like, I just want this to be over, honestly. Like, remember how popular it was that they were doing spin-offs and, anthologies and everything tied into this world? I don't hear anyone talking about this anymore because it just doesn't come out in a timely fashion. And it's disappointing. It really is. But yeah, the overall tone, I mean, this book has been so up and down, like, oh, it's this cool fantasy version of the DCU and really cool. And there's foreboding, foreshadowing of things to come. Who is the Green Man and all that kind of evil stuff or whatever. And then there's betrayal, and it feels very much sort of in that Game of Thrones. I'm speculating. I never have watched Game of Thrones, but that sort of right? That sort of storytelling where people are backstabbing and betraying and that sort of thing. But then, when you find out it's white Martians, it's like, oh, well, that makes sense with the shape shifting and what have you. But it feels a little bit ex Deus Machina, and there were no clues whatsoever about the white Martians. And I guess that's okay. We didn't really have a chance to figure it out because there weren't really clues dropped. I love, again, this idea of Alfred as a different character, this time John Jones, the Martian Manhunter, just like we had Alfred becoming the Spectre, also written by Tom Taylor. But at some point, it becomes a little too much, right? Like, Alfred needs to be Alfred. Alfred can't be in every different multiversal version of the DC universe. Alfred can't. What is Alfred going to be? Superman? Is Alfred going to be Jor-El in some other version? Like, it starts to get a little tropey. You're right about the art and the colors. It's really, really good. And reading this all together, you may just enjoy it. It may be like a fun kind of popcorn sort of story that maybe is not that memorable, but you just enjoy it for what it is when everything is said and done. But yeah, my biggest complaint is just the schedule. The schedule has robbed this of any momentum, and I sort of don't really care anymore. I just want it to be over. And I feel like even going back and reading it all together, it's still going to feel choppy, right? Just the way that it was constructed. Because again, we had the way that it started out, and it felt like it was moving along at a certain pace, and then Tom Taylor started throwing us all these curveballs, and that was interesting enough. But then we'd take a break from that, and then we'd focus on, oh, we're going to have an issue that's just about this world's version of Ma and Pa Kent and the Titans, and we haven't seen them since. And so, yeah, it just became like, all right, this is Tom Taylor wanting to show us as many medieval versions of different DC characters as we can. And that might not be completely fair, but a chance for him to do that sort of at the expense of keeping the pacing and the momentum of the story moving forward. And I'm not pointing the finger and blaming anybody for why this is late. I have no idea if it was script wise, art wise. I have no insight into that whatsoever, but I've said it 1,000 times, if not more. If you can't keep to a regular schedule, then delay the launch of the book, because there's no quicker way to kill sales and to kill reader interest than to have books come out months and months after, especially for the last 2 issues. They have them come out months and months after. I'm sorry, maybe if somebody who only reads Tom Taylor stuff can keep track and can remember what happened in the previous issue and how it made them feel or whatever. Rocky and myself, we read way too many comics to be able to remember what happened. I mean, I was just talking about Batman. Batman hasn't even been late, and I still had to go back and look at the previous 2 issues to see about him losing his hand and whatnot. So again, it's just I'm not blaming anybody, but DC got to do a better job of staying on schedule if you want these books to be good. And maybe you don't care. Maybe just know this is going to sell really well in a trade when it's all collected, and that's what you're more focused on. But yeah, you're doing a disservice to your monthly readers. So, just my opinion.
Yeah.
Up next, Steelworks #1. And before we get to Steelworks #1, I'll say one other thing about Dark Knights of Steel 11. Fuck Amanda Waller. Backstabbing B word. Anyway, Steelworks #1. Written by Michael Dorn, right? So Worf from Star Trek: The Next Generation. That's who's writing this. Sami Basri is the artist. Andrew Dahlhaus on colors. Rob Lee on letters. Been saying recently, as we've been getting the Steel backups in Action Comics, that I'm not the biggest Steel fan. That being said, I love the tone that Michael Dorn is giving us here. I had completely forgotten that, and I can't even remember. I think it might have been in the Superwoman title.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Phil Jimenez did, that showed us a relationship between Lana Lang and John Henry Irons.
Yeah.
I love them. I love them together as a couple. That's fantastic. There was always the sort of the triangle, the classic triangle between Lana and Lois Lane and Superman. And that can't really exist anymore with Superman and Lois being married. So pairing her off with John Henry Irons, I love it. I love that Dorn has chosen to make that a part of his story. And I just like the tone that he's giving John Henry Irons. It may come across at times as a little expository, right? With John Henry explaining to Natasha sort of his philosophy and what he wants to do. But I'm going to forgive that a little bit. #1, because Michael Dorn is, newer to writing comics. As far as I know, this is the first comic he's written. That may not be the case. He is a writer. I know he's written other things. And I think he's done some directing too in the TV world. But I'm going to forgive it because #1, Michael Dorn, even if he has written comics, he hasn't written a lot of them. So he's going to get better the more he does it. And he's a super intelligent guy. I have complete faith in him, very talented. The other thing is it makes it very new reader friendly. Like if somebody's jumping on this that may not be that familiar with Steel or DC as a whole, just maybe they're reading it because they're a Star Trek fan and love Michael Dorn or just love Michael Dorn in general, and they're jumping on this. So I don't mind, having the dialogue feel like I'm being spoon fed a little bit. It's not necessary for me, but I recognize it may be for some other people. So I'm willing to forgive that. And yeah, bringing in Lana Lang and that relationship is really great. The art by Sami Basri is fantastic. This villain that I'm assuming is going to be named Stax, because that's the last name of not Stax. Stax is the name of the driver. Mr. Carey is the name of the villain who blames John Henry Irons for sort of his lot in life because of what Irons did in exposing the corruption to his former company. And he's recruited by this guy, Charles Walker III, who feels like a little bit of a sort of a Lex Luthor analog. So we'll see how that all plays out, what powers he's given. And we know he's going to try to take out John Henry Irons. That's really interesting to me. So there's a lot here to unpack in the first issue. But again, I think Dorn did a good job of making it new reader friendly, and the art and colors are absolutely fantastic. I wouldn't say I had low expectations for this, but based on the backups that we have had, this focused on Steelworks in the pages of Action Comics, I wasn't excited, right? Because those stories didn't really excite me. There was no hook. This to me has a couple hooks. It has the Lana Lang, John Henry Irons relationship, which I find to be interesting. And then this new villain, and the fact that he holds a grudge, and even though he holds a grudge, to his credit, he tells this Charles Walker III guy, when Charles Walker's like, I'm going to give you a chance to get revenge on Steel. He's like, I don't want anything to do with any of that. He's like, no, let me out of here. I don't want to, how is getting revenge on John Henry Irons going to bring back my wife that I lost? Right. Like, so part of the reason he blames Irons is because of what John Henry Irons did in exposing the corruption at the former company that he worked at, was that this guy Mr. Carey lost his job, and then he didn't have health insurance to help pay for his wife's care when she got ill, right? So it's not really John Henry Irons' fault, but you can understand why the guy would have resentment. It feels very real. It's very realistic what Dorn has done here. But again, I love the fact that Carey rather, doesn't just dive in and go, yeah, Charles Walker, give me power. I'll go and kill John Henry Irons, whatever. No, instead he's like, how's that going to bring my wife back? Like, my life is already ruined. What good is it going to do to ruin somebody else's life? There's some realism there. He's not leaning into the trope, right? Like the cyborg Superman trope, if you will. Hank Henshaw blaming, unrealistically blaming everything on Superman for his lot in life. So I did enjoy that as well. So again, the hook of this new villain, whoever it might be, the Lana Lang, John Henry Irons relationship. And then the other thing is just this art. Like I said, Basri's art, line work, absolutely fantastic. Storytelling, colors, really, really amazing. So I'm actually excited. I can't wait for issue number 2. This was so unexpected. So I'm really, really glad that Michael Dorn is writing this because, yeah, fantastic first issue. Give him all the credit. What were your thoughts?
Well, I like the potential science fiction element that Michael Dorn is playing with here. The idea that Metropolis has been attacked and destroyed so many times that, I mean, there is some danger to living in Metropolis. Probably now, of course, probably Gotham City is the number one most dangerous city to live in the DC universe. We could probably all agree on that, but let's face it, Metropolis is not a particularly safe place to live either. And in fact, there's 3 pages at the end of this story which go through a critical, severe, and moderate phase, which show that talk about the most critical, there's levels. There's a moderate threat, a severe threat, and a critical threat. The critical threat was when Doomsday destroyed Metropolis, and then there was the Ultra Woman Centennial Day attack that took place in the pages, I believe, of Superwoman that you mentioned. And then there was Steelworks Tower destruction. That was in PKJ's, Philip Kennedy Johnson's Action Comics run. And all of that meant to underscore the fact that Metropolis is regularly under attack. And John Henry Irons' plan here, and this was alluded to we had like 2 backup stories leading into this, but this does a really good way of flushing it out even better. The idea that John Henry Irons wants to create technology that actually so Metropolis as a city can protect itself so that it doesn't actually need heroes. What's interesting here is that Michael Dorn has taken this from an angle. He seems to suggest that at some point, John Henry Irons is going to confront the Superman family and maybe tell them about his plan, which might minimize the need for superheroes. Because ultimately, that's the goal here, is to have the citizens of the world feel safe in a city that can protect itself, so that it can empower the citizenry to protect themselves in living in probably some kind of symbiosis with the cities. And that's the power of technology, and that's what John Henry Irons is seeking. And I find that very, very intriguing. How that plays into this arch-villain Stax. You're only as good as the villain. So Michael Dorn, this Stax character that's going to be made into a villain, an unwitting villain, one that has a background where he's lost his wife, he's maybe bitter and upset, but he's not a bad man. He's just a grieving man. He's hurting. But of course, you take a grieving man and a hurting man, and you manipulate them, and which is what this Mr. Carey character seems to be doing. You could probably create a sizable villain. So it's really intriguing. I'm more than prepared to give Michael Dorn a lot of slack here. This is sort of while it's an opening issue, he's repeating some themes he's had leading up to it, but I'm prepared to give this a couple more issues to see where he's going with this. There's a lot of talk in this issue, but I like the plot, and I'm really interested in the seeds and the themes that he's introducing. So not bad.
Yeah, good start. Up next, we have Adventures of Superman, written by Tom Taylor. Derek Robertson is the penciler for this issue. Robertson and Norm Ratman on inks. Colors by Jordi Belair. Letters by Wes Abbott. Love the art. Derek Robertson, the last thing we saw him on was Batman Fortress. Great to see him on this. And basically, in the issue, John Kent Superman is flying around the world of the Injustice Superman, sort of doing his own investigating, trying to figure out who can I trust. We saw last issue when he was flying around and he was thinking about how quiet the world was, how there wasn't a lot of disasters or people crying out for help and whatnot. And he came to the realization that it wasn't quiet because Superman had done a good job of making it safe. It was quiet out of fear. Everybody's fearing Superman, fearing his wrath, and so nobody wants to stick their head up. So John is continuing his investigations, if you will, and trying to figure out who to trust, who's on the side of right, and we get some cool interactions between him and Damian Wayne. Obviously, the Super Sons reunited, different versions of them, and it seems like that's what's going to play out going forward, because this Damian Wayne of the Injustice universe is sort of damaged in a way that the Damian Wayne of the main universe isn't, having lost Dick Grayson and really buying into a lot of what Superman does and believes. And you can see why, right? Damian's always been a little bit of a character with more of an edge, and this Injustice Superman is a character that has an edge as well. So it's going to be interesting to see their confrontation and how it's going to play out in the long run. So a really, really good issue. I don't know that it advanced the plot forward very much, which, again, we come to sort of expect these types of issues once in a while from Tom Taylor, where he's going to lean more into the emotion of the characters, more so than actually moving the plot forward. So a bit of a setup issue in terms of plot, but a lot of sort of emotional stakes are brought to the forefront in this issue. So, and then fantastic Derek Robertson art, like I said. What did you think of it overall, Rock?
What a waste of Derek Robertson's art. What a waste. I did not like this issue, but then I haven't, this issue went, the entire thing went awry from the beginning when Ultraman was killed. But in fairness, I have to avoid the trap, and I've done this before with Tom Taylor in this series, which I'm very disappointed with. I got to review the story that I'm given, not the story that I wish was being told. So, for what it's worth, it's really nice to see Jay Nakamura without his disgusting pink hair. I'll say that. He looks much better as a black-haired man. I mean, he looks much better. He's a better-looking kid when he's got black hair. I mean, so I think. The characterization here, again, Tom Taylor nails the characterization. And if you're fans of Adventures, if you're fans of the first 18 issues of Adventures of Superman, then you're going to love this series. If you wanted there to be any kind of closure where John Kent deals with this trauma, deals with Ultraman, this series isn't it. One of my big fears here is this is doing damage to the Injustice universe. If the Super Sons, I mean, he's telling a Super Sons story. He wants, I guess John Kent is going to be interacting with the Damian Wayne of the Injustice universe. Okay, so we're going to get a de facto Super Sons story. Again, I mean, boy, we've sure shift directions. First it was Ultraman, then it was Injustice Superman. Now it's going to be a befriending a jaded Damian Wayne in the Injustice universe. I mean, zigzag. Misdirection. What's the story he wants to tell here? What's the real point? I'm not really sure where this is going. I do know that I'm not interested in it. I've lost that much because I don't want. Please, I really hope he's got no influence on the Injustice Superman. I mean, for God's sakes, leave the Injustice Superman the asshole that he is. I mean, please. That's the whole attraction of the Injustice Superman. Don't make him a good person. Don't do what you did in Dark Knights of Steel, where you had to make everybody just as good as they are in the mainstream DCU. Don't be afraid to leave Superman a jerk. He's an Injustice Superman. There's a reason why they call it an Injustice universe, right? Don't mess with it too much. Don't make Damian Wayne nice. It's okay. You can leave them a-holes. I mean, that's where the drama is. That's where the story is. That's what fans enjoyed reading. Don't spit on the woman you took to the dance. I mean, this is the art's fantastic. But John Kent interacting with Batman here. I mean, much ado about nothing. I mean, it's typical misunderstanding. John Kent very clearly. I mean, and I have to say this from a storytelling point of view. I mean, you're in a universe that is literally a completely different universe. It's an Injustice universe. Why would you assume that the analog of the person that you're sleeping with in your universe is going to be a good person. So he figures John Kent's logic is that, well, I'm going to find my boyfriend in this universe and I'll talk with him, and I'm sure he's just as good as my boyfriend is in the other universe. I mean, was Damian Wayne the same? Why would he assume that? Of course, he goes and meets him and he talks with him and maybe he hears his heartbeat, but it just, I thought this John Kent was stunningly naive and remains so. But I guess that's his attraction. I guess he's so innocent, he's so pure, and of course he's right. He's right. That's what I don't like about it. I want to see more of the jadedness. I want to see more of the darkness. If we get to the end of this and this is all, John Kent is right. The Injustice universe is so bad, it's wrong. Oh my God, I wish we had more John Kents in the universe. Come on. I mean, where's the drama? Where's the fun? I get it. John Kent, Tom Taylor is going out of his way to show us how perfect John Kent is, how he's not traumatized at all. While, Batman's the asshole here, Damian's the jerk. Of course, the other perfect person in the Injustice universe is naturally his boyfriend, Jay Nakamura, the non-pink-haired guy, of course. The whole thing just seems so forced, so contrived. I'm looking at so much. I want so much more drama here and misdirection. This plot is boring. This is going nowhere. I'm very, very disappointed with this. Although I didn't mind seeing Injustice Harley Quinn again. But frankly, I pulled, this is no longer on my pull list either. And because I already know this isn't going to end well because Ultraman's dead. So that's my rant. That's too many rants in one review. It's not bad.
Man, I understand. I understand that it was a complete bait and switch. That doesn't mean that Ultraman can't come back. I mean, we see his body here. He has, something going on. They could bring him back. I do agree with you that this is not the story that we were told we were going to get, but I don't think that makes this a bad story. I think it's giving John Kent a lot of agency. So I'm a little surprised to hear you're not enjoying it, because I think there's a lot. Like, I think if you hadn't been told what the series was and how it's not that, I think you would be enjoying this more. I think you're hung up on the fact that we're not getting what we were told we were going to get. So
there's a bit of that, yes.
Anyway, let's move on. Shazam number 2, written by Mark Waid. Art is by Dan Mora. Colors by Alejandro Sanchez. Troy Petrie on letters. We saw at the end of last issue, Shazam sort of lose it. Captain Marvel sort of lose it and yell at some of the people that he had just rescued. And this issue starts off with the rest of the Shazam family, even though they don't have powers, calling him out for that. So what'd you think of this?
I've been enjoying this. Mark Waid, Dan Mora. I mean, Dan Mora's art is just fantastic. Even all the variant covers here, although, once again, all these variant covers suffer from the criticism that none of them have anything to do with the actual content of the comic book, which is an ongoing criticism, although one is arguably that. At least they're fun and they're goofy. And a quick shout out, by the way, I'm actually collecting all the Flash movie covers as well. I foolishly gambled on getting all the Black Adam movie covers, and that worked out so well. So I think I'm a jinx for the Flash movie, but foolishly I'm getting all the Flash movie cover variants because, I'm a hypocrite. I bitch about covers and then I go out and buy them. In any event, last issue ended with Shazam acting very much out of character. Because it appears that the various gods that make up the powers of Shazam, being Solomon and Zeus and Atlas and et cetera, they are apparently they're disappointed with how Billy's using his powers, and what's been hinted at and what we've been able to infer in the first issue is that they seem to be disappointed in Billy. And they're sort of controlling Billy. And last issue ended with Billy Shazam losing it and yelling at a reporter and being very much out of character and being a real a-hole. And it was live on TV. And this issue opens with all his orphan brothers and sisters, calling him out, and you're saying, what the hell was that about? And he's saying that, he doesn't know what it is, and he's afraid to become Shazam. And as this story progresses, I mean, the first issue had, a dinosaur showed up, Shazam helped a dinosaur, and in this issue, a dinosaur shows up at his doorstep. There's a lot of zaniness. This is a lot of fun. This is Mark Waid just having fun. What's great about this it feels like it's written like this is almost written for a 15-year-old, and yet it's somehow Mark Waid makes it possible for adults to have fun reading a story that feels like it's being written for a younger teenager, and yet it feels it's a lot of fun to read as an adult. And that's something that not everyone can pull off, because some comic books feel like they're being written for children, and they feel, I almost feel insulted that I'm reading it, because it shouldn't be. It doesn't feel that it's something that can entertain me as an adult. This is different. This is beautifully drawn. I love the art here, and I love Dan Moore does an amazing job. Just a minute, I gotta kiss my daughter goodnight. Night. Love you. And Psycho Pirate shows up, and it's actually, I think it's a very convenient villain to show up that Shazam has to stop. Psycho Pirate, of all things, wants to steal the Mona Lisa. And Psycho Pirate, of course, manipulates emotions. And ultimately, there's a confrontation between Shazam and Psycho Pirate. Billy reluctantly turns into Shazam because he has no choice, because he has to stop Psycho Pirate. And there's some really great action sequences, particularly with Shazam, stopping a train. It's just really epic in like Superman-like fashion. Some really great action sequences, beautifully drawn. And ultimately, Shazam loses it in stopping Roger Hayden, who is Psycho Pirate, and he realizes that Psycho Pirate doesn't have his mask. So once again, his emotions were not being manipulated by Psycho Pirate. He lost it emotionally, because once again, something's playing havoc with Shazam's powers or Shazam's state of mind, and not even the wisdom of Solomon can help Billy figure out what the heck is going on. And of course, it's strongly hinted that the reason why the wisdom of Solomon isn't helping Billy solve the mystery as to what his problem is that Solomon himself is probably one of the ones who is angry or upset with Billy, along with the other his other patron gods that give him his power. And it ends with the tease of Mary Marvel going into Night Terrors, which is coming up during the summer months. And with young Freddy, who is the only one, he wants to get some powers too, because Mary Marvel got Amazon powers. Amazon goddesses gave Mary Marvel her own unique power set, and Freddy would like his own unique power set too, and he wants to also help Billy. And unfortunately, he's discovered by one of the gods, patron gods of Shazam. And where's the wizard? I don't know where the wizard is. I don't know where the wizard is in all of this, but that will be revealed, I'm sure. But in the meantime, I enjoyed this. I had a lot of fun with this. What about you, Jace?
Well, didn't we see the wizard last in the pages of the Wonder Woman book?
Yeah, but well, we saw him there. But how does he end up here, or does he end up here? I don't know.
Yeah, turned evil due to Lazarus Reign. So, yeah, I really love the backup with Billy, or Freddy rather, because here's the thing about Freddy: like more than any of the other kids that have the Shazam abilities, I think it means the most to him, because he says it himself. He's like, the other kids can, run and play football and ride a skateboard. They can do all that stuff when they're not in their Shazam persona. Freddy has issues. He has physical disabilities that don't allow him to be just a regular kid. So I think in a way, it means more to him than anyone else. So the Dan Moore art is fantastic. Yes, I would say this is. I won't say it's continuity light, because there is continuity here. But Mark Waid, he's such a fantastic writer. He's telling a story in such a way that it doesn't contradict anything else, and you don't necessarily need to be reading anything else. You can read this and it stands on its own. So he's doing a fantastic job in that way. And whether or not it might tie in later on, we'll see. Because seeing Psycho Pirate, again, last time we saw him was in the pages of Batman, Detective Comics, actually. And yeah, I think he's an underutilized character, and made complete sense when he showed up here. Like, oh, he's manipulating Billy's emotions. And then you find out that's not the case. and it's another little curveball. But again, much like World's Finest, I don't expect this mystery to be dragged out by Mark Waid. He's a better writer than that. He's not going to rely on some, false intrigue or mystery. It's going to take as long as it takes for us to find out what exactly is going on, who the true villain is. I sort of expect to find it next issue. And I talked to Mark Waid at the Phoenix Comic Convention this last weekend, and he mentioned how much fun he's having writing both this and World's Finest. So when a writer's having that much fun, it comes through in the story, and that's definitely what we're seeing here.
It does.
All right, up next we have Poison Ivy, issue 13, written by G. Willow Wilson. Marcio Takara does the art on pages 1 and then 20 through 22. Gim Marsh does 2 through 4. Kelly Jones on 5 through 11. A.L. Kaplan, 12 through 19. Eric Prianto, Jose Villarrubia, A.L. Kaplan, and then Hassan Otsman Elhau Prianto, Villarrubia, and Kaplan handle the colors, and then Hassan Otsman Elhau on letters. So I enjoyed seeing Guillaume Marsh's art more than anyone else. I kind of wish he was doing the whole thing. I love his Poison Ivy, especially the way he draws her hair. Kelly Jones' art felt very nostalgic for me. I was reading Batman when Kelly Jones was the regular artist on that. So it's fine. As far as the story itself, I'm starting to lose a little bit of interest in Poison Ivy. This felt like a down issue. To me, it felt like it's starting to lean into some of the more kind of tropey things that Poison Ivy did in the past. She's teaming up with Killer Croc. She's going to take out a high-rise that's being built in Gotham City. So again, it's leaning into the whole eco-terrorism thing. It's not that interesting to me. And I feel like with what G. Willow Wilson has built previously, she's been a more interesting character than that. And it feels like a little bit of a step backwards, but not giving up on it yet. I do still continue to like the tone, the voice that Wilson gives to Pamela Isley. I think she understands who she is as a character very, very well. And, to play sort of devil's advocate, take the other side of what I was just saying, it's like, well, where else can you go with her being back in Gotham? And a lot of people have been waiting for her to get back together with Ivy. So hopefully this is sort of a temporary thing. And there's hints of that she may be taking Ivy out of Gotham City, but still keeping her close, keeping her somewhere where she can explore the relationship with Ivy, but she's not in Gotham City, which seems to engender telling stories of her as one of Batman's gallery of villains, so to speak. So we'll have to wait and see how it plays out. But man, I'm looking at the Guillaume Marsh pages right now and just thinking, God, I wish he was a regular penciler on this book. Love his art. So anyway, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, well, first a shout out to Guillaume March. I've got his 2-volume art set. There's these two. I got the soft cover and a hard cover of his volumes 1 and 2 of his art. Fantastic. I love Guillaume March. He's one of my favorite cover artists, and I particularly love when he does a cover that isn't a ratio variant, because I can't get his ratio variants because it's too bloody expensive. But man, does he draw sexy women, and he definitely knows how to draw a sexy Poison Ivy here. Now, I'm a little bit like some people. I'm surprised that this series is as popular as it is. At the same time, it is popular, and I think that part of the reason why of its popularity, and this is just a theory, I could be wrong, is that I think that there's some stability and normality in Poison Ivy here, and because of the promise which has been kept, namely bringing Harley and Ivy together, that's always been in the background. Plus, there's always been sexual tension in every issue. Whether if Poison Ivy isn't sleeping with Harley, she's sleeping with somebody else. And there's even hints at orgies and sexuality and perfume and the mist and it seems to have this psychosexual element, but it's grounded in character and grounded in the love that Ivy has for Harley, and she finds her way back home to Gotham here. What I find so funny here is I can't think of two people more completely screwed up psychologically That's not true. I probably can, but let's face it, Harley and Ivy are pretty screwed up. And to put them together and to expect that this is going to be a functioning relationship is kind of laughable. And yet here we are. And the disappointment of this is the story that J. Willow Wilson is, the stories that she tells. I would, it would seem to me that the story to be told is how on earth do these two stay together? And I want to see them. I want to see the dysfunction. I want to see the serious dysfunction, not played like a joke, like it is in a Harley comic book. This is a Poison Ivy book. Tell me a serious story about a dysfunctional relationship between Harley and Ivy, something that they have to overcome so they earn their relationship. I mean, let's face it. What does J. Willow Wilson do when Ivy and Harley get together? They get along fine. They love each other. They get along. Nothing. There's no dysfunction at all. They get along absolutely fine. They both kill. They kill people. It's not a big deal. Ivy kills people. It's a little psychotic. It's not a big deal. They get together. They have sex. This issue opens up. They're sleeping beside each other. Oh, hunky dunky. Everything's fine. Come on. I mean, there's more drama in when Bruce Wayne sleeps with a woman. I mean, there's got to be more drama here in the relationship between Poison Ivy and Harley, and it's devoid here. Instead, we get a story where Poison Ivy is getting up and she goes out and she wants to have a house in the swamp because Batman doesn't want her in Gotham, so she wants to get a house out in the swamp or outside on the outskirts of Gotham, but that's where Killer Croc is, and Killer Croc moved out to the swamp because there's a building being built, a tower being built above where he would like to live in the sewage under the ground, and so he makes a deal with Poison Ivy to go take out this high tower. I mean, I get it. It's a story, but of all the stories that could be told here, I would rather. I can't believe we're missing out on a story between Ivy and Harley. And again, I just I'm continuously surprised and wrong on my instincts on this comic. It continues to sell well. People seem to really love this, but I just find it directionless and kind of it's getting boring. I agree with you. This is really getting boring. And I can't believe of the missed opportunity that, I mean, have some fun exploring the complete nonsensical dysfunctional nature of the Ivy Harley relationship. I mean, you should be having a blast with that and pushing some boundaries there. But instead we're getting some fairly, I think, derivative, predictable storytelling. But
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go so far as to say it's derivative and predictable yet, but it seems to be heading in that direction. That's what I'm worried about. Harley as, or rather, Poison Ivy as this eco terrorist taking down, high rise condos that are for the super rich in Gotham. It's been there, done that. Thought we were doing something different with this series, so we'll wait and see. Joel Wilson is a very talented creator, so. All right, up next we have Flash 800. Bitter sweet is the best way to describe this. Friend of the show, somebody Rocky and I both know personally, Jeremy Adams. This is his last issue on Flash. Um, it's bittersweet because the issue's so amazing. This may be one of my favorite Jeremy Adams Wally West Flash stories he's ever done. So it's one of 5 stories that are in here. Don't Come to Central City, first story, written by Jeremy Adams, pencils, amazing pencils, by Fernando Passerin, inks by Auclair Albert, colors by Matt Herms, letters by Rob Lee. Then we have The Max in the Mirror, written by Mark Wade, pencils and inks by Todd Knott, colors by Matt Herms, lettered by Rob Lee. Love that fits into past continuity. A Flash Family Story, written by Joshua Williamson. Great pencils and inks by Carmine Di Giandomenico. I almost didn't recognize it as his style. The art is so clean, which is not what I'm used to from him. But he was a long time penciler on Joshua Williamson's run. Colors on that one are by Yvonne Placencia, letters by Rob Lee. And then there's a story by Jeff Johns, Blitz Back, starring Hunter Zolomon, Zoom. Pencils and inks in that one by Scott Collins, colors by Luis Guerrero, letters by Rob Lee. And then finally, Between Love and You, which is a Dawn of DC prelude, written by Cy Spurrier, pencils and inks by Mike Deodato Jr., colors by Trish Mulvihill, letters by Hassan Otsman Elhau. It's sort of a preview of what to expect from the cosmic horror, right? That's what we were told That was the description of what Cy Springer Flash Run is going to be, Cosmic Horror. So if you're curious about what that'll be, trying to decide if you're going to put it on your pull list, yeah, you can check that story out, and it'll give you a good idea. Tons of covers, too. We have main cover by Torrin Clark, then variants by Michael Cho, Jeff DeCall, Simone DeMeo, David Nakayama, Otto Schmidt, Francis Manipul, Javier Rodriguez, Matt Taylor, and a Flash movie variant cover by John Boy Myers. So, yeah, give us your thoughts, Rocky. I guess we'll go story by story. What'd you think of the first one, Don't Come to Central City?
Well, Don't Come to Central City. It's written by Jeremy Adams. And Jeremy, my friend, you made me laugh. This was probably... we've been entertained with some pretty entertaining, laugh out loud Flash comics by Jeremy Adams. This one, I think I had a hearty laugh. This one I thoroughly enjoyed. We start off, we're introduced to, it looks like a bunch of supervillains that I don't recognize, or maybe there's Golden Glider, I think, or I don't know. It's really unimportant, but they're talking about what cities. I mean, it's actually hilarious because it's a conversation that a lot of comic collectors that you could imagine we could have this. I could have this conversation in a comic shop on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, and that is, if I lived in the DC universe and was a supervillain, what would be the worst city to be a supervillain in, and what would be the best city? And that's the conversation that these supervillains are having, and they're basically talking about the Flash, and they basically say that they would never ever want to practice crime in Central City because it's the worst place, because Wally West, or pardon me, they know obviously the Flash is just, you can't beat the Flash. And it's really a love letter to just how spectacular the Flash is. And it's just really funny stories about one time the Joker tried his shenanigans in Central City, and literally in seconds the threat to the Joker was gone because the Flash, basically tornado Joker and his Joker gas away from Central City. And then Condiment King tried to rob a bank and then ended up within a few seconds. He found himself not in the bank, but in the desert thousands of miles away. and then all these other villains that they try to take on the Flash, and they find themselves handily defeated. And my favorite story, of course, the highlight of the issue is they're telling the story of Mordru, this powerful sorcerer. Mordru, shows up in the city and basically essentially takes a sucker away from a young girl on the street. And the Flash literally chases Mordru through time, through different dimensions to get the young girl her sucker back. And and it's... For those of us who have been, all of us have been, is there anybody who's been reading Flash that hasn't been at least liking it? A good many of us, like you and I, have been loving it. And, the Flash has been it's a story that's Wally West. It's about family. It's about love. It's about compassion. It's about fun. And the embodiment of the Wally West is about his kids and his love for his children. And then, of course, they got a new son named Wade now. So now there's 3 children, and the whole idea that Wally West is a terrific dad, and of course a father is going to travel through time and space to rescue a sucker from a supervillain to give it back to a young girl on a city street. And this is such a Wally West thing to do, and what a perfect way, ironically, for Jeremy Adams to sort of say, well, basically saying hopefully a temporary goodbye to Wally West by ending on that note that here's this super speedster, the fastest man alive. You want to know who he is? This is the guy that'll go through time and space to rescue a sucker that's from a supervillain to give it back to a young girl. And it's just a lot of fun. And of course, it ends, of course, with Flash catching the bad guys, interrupting their card game. But I really love this opening issue. What about yourself?
Yeah, it's just a lot of fun. It shows the power of the Flash, shows just how fast Wally West can be. The art is fantastic. Yeah, there's nothing There's nothing to dislike here. It has the humor and the happiness and the feel that I sort of expect from a Jeremy Adams Flash story. So absolutely amazing. Just love it. Yeah, very sad to see him go. That he's not going to be on the title anymore. So yeah, it's just so much. It's just so much fun. Yeah, just something that you, like you said, you don't necessarily think about, but something that again, comic book fodder, comic book store fodder, where you talk about, hey, if you're a supervillain, where's the worst? Which is the city you'd like to be in the least, and everything that Jeremy has play out here makes total sense. It's fantastic. Yeah. The second story, The Max in the Mirror, again, it takes place during Impulse 6 and 7, which, if I'm not mistaken, Mark Waid wrote those issues, so it makes sense to have him here writing this story that takes place between issue 6 and 7 of Impulse. Todd Knock, gorgeous art, really suits the tone of the story that Mark Waid is telling. And it's basically telling the story of Max Mercury and Wally West, Flash, being stuck in a mirror where the Mirror Master imprisoned them, and they only have a limited time to be freed before they're going to sort of dissipate. And they talk to Bart Allen, he talked to Impulse through the mirror of his bathroom and tell him, hey, we need you to go find the Mirror Master because we're trapped here. But again, the patience that Bart Allen doesn't have, they don't listen to the second half of the sentence, which is, yeah, we need help. We need you to get him to release us. Well, he's knocked out cold. So they're like, well, maybe you could pick up his gun and, the mirror gun and release us. And that's not possible either because Bart has destroyed it in taking out Mirror Master. So again, it's just sort of, if it has anything in common with the first story, it's just how much fun it is. And it really does showcase how Bart Allen can kind of sort of act before he thinks, but that he's not that doesn't mean he's dumb, right? Like that was one of the sort of the themes in the recent Young Justice series is people kind of take him as, because he's so impulsive. Again, I mean, his name is Impulse. And sometimes he can act without thinking, but that doesn't mean he doesn't have the capability to think and figure things out, which he does in this story. So for anybody who's not familiar with Impulse, this is actually a really, really good story in terms of kind of boiling the character down to his essence in just a short few pages here. So again, kudos to Mark Waid. He's such a fantastic writer. So I enjoyed this, and the Todd Knock art, again, tone perfect for the story. Just great, just beautiful.
Yeah.
So
I echo your sentiment, and it's funny. I couldn't help but think of that Young Justice series, just how, I mean, that Young Justice series, which was of course completely different, written by Megan Fitzmartin, but this is the Impulse that we know and love. This is what I was hoping. I was hoping it was going to capture the essence of it. And kudos to Mark Waid here, just being very blunt, dispensing with all pretense and saying, enough. I love continuity. Rather than try to shoehorn this into the present continuity of this story, I'm just going to say it took place between this and this issue of my run way back in the day, which is back in the 90s sometime between issues 6 and 7. And it fits. It's great. It's Impulse the way that we love. It just goes to show that the classic iteration of these characters we haven't lost it. And this is a message, and I don't want to pick on Fitzmartin, but the message of that Young Justice series was, we've moved on, we're past this, and, shame on you for liking the 90s and who these characters were. Well, Mark Waid sure seems to still like how Impulse was back then, and he's written a story, and it's fantastic, it's entertaining, it's funny, and this is the iteration of these characters that we know and love, and the reaction between Max Mercury and Wally West to Impulse, especially when they thought they were going to die, and Impulse somehow, he's actually pretty damn smart. He figures out the miles per second, he powers up the gun, he puts it together. I mean, he might be impulsive, hence the name, but damn if he doesn't know how to win the day. And it's another reason why we love the character.
Yeah, 100%. All right. The next to last story, Flash Family by Joshua Williamson and Carmine Di Giandomenico. Yeah. What were your thoughts on this one?
This one was, I I don't know. I didn't really. I guess it was okay. It was a feel good story. I didn't. I thought this was my least favorite, but it was just. I thought it was a little bit boring, to be honest with you. It was just Barry and Iris, and they were going on a date, and he takes them on a takes Barry takes Iris on a cosmic treadmill, and they go and they meet their future children, and they're, I guess, the tornado twins from the future. I think is that who they are? Um, I'm,
Yeah, it
I'm,
seems like that.
I think that's who they are. Um, doesn't really say who they are, although longtime Flash readers. Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure that's who they are. But um, yeah, I'm not. I like the fact that Wally and Linda are in it, and I'm not sure. Um, yeah, Barry and Ira show up, and they take. I guess they're all gonna go out. I guess they're all gonna. They all go out together at the end. So I guess it's nice. I just thought it was. I guess it was a feel good story, and it was Joshua Williamson actually. You know. Actually. Well, I just thought it was meh. I just thought it was meh. It it was the least. I can't say anything bad about it. It was just really boring. But I don't know. What do you think of it?
Yeah, unfortunately, I kind of feel the same way. Like, um, I get what Williamson was trying to do. He's trying to sort of capture that family feel that Jeremy Adams has been able to capture so well, and remind us how much these people care about each other. And it's meant to be an emotional story, but it didn't add anything new. It didn't. There was no dynamic moment. There was no
Yeah.
real emotional hook. It just sort of told us what long term Flash fans already know. Like
Yeah.
these the Flash family is a close knit family. It's something that works as a family. It doesn't feel forced like the Green Arrow family has sort of felt in the first couple issues of that, or even to some extent the Superman family, um, and Batman family has grown so big. It's God, don't even get me started there. But yeah, this one it didn't. There didn't feel like anything special. Like if you're writing a story for Flash 800, a milestone issue, I just kind of expect a little more from Williamson. It's not a bad story by any means, and it's great to see so many characters of the Flash family, and where it shines is the interaction um, between Wally and Linda when Wally calls her Barry's a nerd and she smacks him. Like that's all fun, and it's where the story's at its best. But the rest of the time, it's just sort of like you said, meh. It didn't land for me. So, but the Carmine Dijon Domenico art, like I said, it's sort of cleaner lines than I'm used to seeing from him, but really fantastic, especially the collage where Wally and Linda are holding little baby Wade, and there's a bunch of Flash characters in the back um, from the Barry Allen version of Flash, Wally West, Jay Garrick, Impulse is there. Um, what's the Godspeed is there. So yeah, it's fantastic,
Yeah.
fantastic art. Up next, the Hunter Zolomon Blitz back from Jeff Johns and Scott Collins. Sort of similar to the story we just talked about, in that there doesn't seem to be a lot of anything new here, except for a hint. We get at the very end of the story, we get the picture of the desk of Detective Ashley Zolomon, which, if I'm not mistaken, that's isn't that Hunter Zolomon's wife, Ashley, or is it his sister? Either way, it's somebody that I wasn't aware was a member of the police force. That might be a hint of something new that's coming. Um, but Zolomon hasn't been around for a long time. Zoom hasn't been around for a long time. And I know a lot of people, they get Zoom and Reverse Flash mixed up. They are different characters. Um, but completely understand why it's hard to keep them straight. Zoom got introduced after Reverse Flash was supposedly dead, but then there's some similarities, especially in the way they look. So I can 100% understand why people would think they're the same character. But um, anyway, I just thought it was okay. The main thing I was left with was, as I said, that picture that says or the panel that says Detective Ashley Zolomon. Don't know what that's about, and why is this there? Does this mean we're going to get some Zoom? again soon. I don't know. Like if you tell Jeff Johns, hey, we want you to write a story for Flash 800, you could understand why, right? He had a very long run on the Flash, and it's beloved. Why would he choose to write about Zoom of all characters? So yeah, not sure. Curious. What do you think?
I've never been a fan of this Hunter character, Hunter Zoom. I think it's a stupid character. I think it's one of Jeff Johns' worst characters ever. Uh, the motivation is absurd. He wants to make Wally West the perfect Flash. Why? I think Jeff Johns thinks he explained it here. It's an absurd explanation. It's a non-explanation. I don't know why he wants to make Wally West the perfect Flash. It makes no sense. I realize he's insane. He's a bad guy. So I guess it doesn't need to make sense. Well, it doesn't. I have no interest in seeing this character. Unfortunately, we probably are going to see this character again. I am in the extreme minority because I know that Jeff Johns, I wasn't a big fan of his Flash run. I think Jeff Johns is obsessed with Zoom and Eben Thon, and I mean, unfortunately, I don't think it's been long enough. I like that we haven't seen Reverse Flash or Zoom. To me, it's the same shit, different pile. If it's a Flash with the yellow costume, I'm not interested in the villain. I don't care. They're one hit wonders. They're the same variation on the same nonsense, and I got no interest in Hunter Zolomon. This explanation, for fans who want to know who Hunter Solomon is, well, this explains it all. And I guess he has got a sister, I guess. Is Jeff Johns going to be writing this character in the future, I guess?
Well, here's the thing, right? Like, we know that the upcoming Flash series is a Barry Allen series. Where's
okay.
Wally West? Zoom is a West character.
Fair
Wally
enough.
West villain, not really a Barry Allen villain.
Yeah. Is it? Well, what's interesting is that Jeff Johns is already behind. I mean, he's already ridiculously behind in Justice Society. The next issue of Justice Society has been delayed again by another, I think, 3 weeks. He's already behind on all his projects, and Doom. I mean, I don't know if maybe Jeff Johns is just doing this for this issue, but if there is going to be future Hunter Solomon stories, which might be excellent, by the way. Forget me being a negative Nelly. I'm just not a fan of the character. I'm not saying the story can't be great, but I'm really hoping that. I mean, I hate to say this, but if Jeff Johns has so much on his plate, I don't think the guy can put more. The more comic books you put on Jeff Johns' plate, I mean, the more delays we seem to be getting. As much as I love the guy's comic book stories, but in any event. We'll see. We'll see. I'm not a fan of Hunter Solomon, but I know that I'm in the minority. A lot of Flash fans love the character, and I'm sure most people will love the fact that this is been teased and that Jeff Johns is writing it. And even though it seems to be derivative and the same stuff we've gotten before, but like you said, so his sister's Detective Ashley Zolomon now. Okay, I mean that's interesting. I guess we'll see where that takes us. But I'm more interested in your thoughts on the final story of this issue 800.
Yeah, Molto Bennies. With again, we know that the story that's going to be told by Cy Spurrier is a Barry Allen story, and this is a preview to it. But it's Wally West and Linda, and the villain is apparently Mirror Master, but what we find out after Wally defeats him, he thinks maybe he has a new power, because it gets really out there and esoteric, which you sort of expect from Cy Spurrier, right? And the art is kind of out there too, with tentacles and eyeballs and I don't know, interdimensional insect-looking things and zombies and fungi, and yeah, I didn't really care for that aspect of the story. But then at the end, when Wally realizes that everything didn't get wrapped up in this nice, neat little bow, even though he managed to capture Mirror Master and trap him or put him in Iron Heights Penitentiary, I almost say Blackgate, but that's Gotham City. Yeah, Iron Heights. There's somebody that's talking to Mirror Master, saying you need to become the criminal, or you need to do more, right? Before the criminal Wally West returns to torment you further, there's still much to do. And again, we see his limbs being wrapped up in these tentacles with eyeballs, which, God, even that feels tropey, right? It feels very much like a Cy Spurrier thing, like body horror, whatever. I'm sort of over it, body horror and that sort of thing. I feel like we've gotten so much of it over the last 3 or 4 years, especially when you add in the idea of fungi, right? Like we saw in pages of Poison Ivy recently, and other we've seen in other independent stuff. So I don't know. I don't know what to think. I'm trying to hold out, reserve judgment. This might be really interesting, but I have a feeling, unfortunately, it's sort of going to be exactly what I expect, which is something that just feels so incongruous, right? Mixing Wally, especially coming out of the Jeremy Adams run that leaned into the kind of traditional superheroic feel and family feel of Flash, to take it in this direction where it just doesn't feel, whether it's Barry Allen or Wally West, like fighting against some body horror type cosmic villain, and talking about, multi dimensions and, glitching frequencies and what have you. It just doesn't feel like Flash to me. And maybe that's what they want. Maybe that's what they want. But my worry is that a lot of Flash fans, a lot of people who've enjoyed what's been going on, aren't going to really want to hear about atomic mirrors and quantum barriers. And you're sort of losing the forest for the trees, if you know what I mean. You get so into these crazy, amazing ideas that you forget to tell a good story with all the other sort of unnecessary, I don't know, paraphernalia of using I'm going to use cool terms. I'm going to use this cool idea of an atomic mirror or a quantum barrier or whatever. Like, these aren't real things, And so where's the context? Where are Flash fans going to relate? So I don't know. I'm worried. That's probably the best way to, like, how do I feel after reading the story? I'm worried about what's to come, to be honest. So I guess in that way, it's sort of met expectations, because it just doesn't. I mean, cosmic horror and the Flash it doesn't feel like a winning formula to me. But what the hell do I know? I'm
Yeah,
just a fan.
I well, I find it interesting because Cy Spurrier is the writer, and yet in some of the lettering or some of the word balloons, the lettering reminds me of some of the lettering that was in his backup on Detective Comics, which was probably some of the worst backups I've ever read in comics in recent memory, which I really hope the Flash would not have any semblance of that, quite frankly. But here, at least the story is a little bit better. I can understand what's going on, but it just feels so esoteric, and that's fine. It is horror based, and it would be unfair if we use a Jeremy Adams metric, which was all family based on this. This is a decidedly different take. This was an editor who decided that let's have a horror vibe on Flash. An editor, whether it's an editor or a group editor that made this decision, whoever they are, fire them. But that's another topic. But this story, here's what frustrates me about these types of Flash stories. It's sort of like every time, it's like reading a bunch of Joshua Williamson Flash stories where the rules of the Speed Force change all the time. It's okay if it's a terrible story, just change the rules of the Speed Force. Here, once again, I hate to say this, but Mike Deodato while he's one of my favorite artists, there are limitations in terms of what an artist can do to draw what Cy Spurrier wants them to draw here, because everything here is just literally we have to be told what's happening because the art doesn't help us. Good God. I mean, the art's fantastic, by the way. The art's fantastic. I love Mike Deodato's art. He's got this style that I've always loved, and he does a really good job of conveying the tone and the mood and the darkness and even the romantic setting of the restaurant where Wally's in. And this is a story that takes place literally in probably 4 or 5 seconds, and Linda just happens to see a little bit of a lightning shift, so she knows that while Wally West is in the restaurant with her, he's also somewhere else. And true to form, Cy Spurrier at least characterizes Linda right, that Linda is not angry, she's not even disappointed, she's just unsurprised. So he at least has Linda in character because she knows her husband Wally would he can't stop being a superhero just because they're going out on a date. And but this does feel. I didn't really understand, stepping sideways through the overlapping layers of existence, but all I can think is not now, not now, not now, and the realms of fungal geometry that I can't describe, where impossible things lurk between frozen moments. Okay, but already I can tell we're going to be off in everything's going to have to be described. It's going to be like a Ram V type. It's going to be like, Cy Spurrier trying to imitate Ram V. Unsurprisingly, he just comes off detective and trying to put Flash through that. Be like, there's a time and place for that, and maybe Cy Spurrier will surprise us. But I, like I said, so far I'm with you on this. I'm not looking forward to this new direction of Wally West, the Flash. But hey, we've been surprised before, and I'll happily bitch slap my past self moving forward. If I'm going to give Cy Spurrier plenty of rope here, I just don't want him to hang himself.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's just a bunch of nonsense words, right? Like you mentioned, you talk about stepping sideways through reality, whatever. What is that? I mean, what the hell does that mean?
Yeah.
Like it's just, it goes to the quantum barrier, atomic mirror, whatever. It's just, it's. I get like maybe some people like the way that he writes, but to me, glitching through layers of light, like sinking through sediment. There's no value to that. There's no storytelling. I guess it's setting a mood, but it's not really a mood that suits the Flash. So again, I'm just like I said, I'm just worried. I'm just worried, and I hope Flash doesn't become unreadable because you're right. Like that. Even though I understood, oftentimes I was explaining to you what was going on in the backup for Detective Comics. It was in a lot of ways incomprehensible, and obviously we don't want Flash to get like, man. It's been a long time since I haven't looked forward to reading the Flash every month. I hate to think we're getting back to that, but hey, now I look forward to reading Green Lantern every month. It's absolutely
That's right.
so there we go. All right. So in addition to these individual issues, we also have Scooby Doo. Where are you? Number 122, and then for collections this week, Nightwing Volume 1, Leaping into the Light trade paperback. That's the Tom Taylor series. This first volume here collects 78 through 83, which is probably the height of that series so far. It has sort of slowed down in terms of its dynamic feel, I'll say. I'm hoping it gets back to that. We also have Wonder Woman Historia, the Amazon's hardcover, collects the first 3 issues. Oh my God, I cannot recommend this highly enough. Phil Jimenez, well-deserved win of an Eisner for Best Artist for Volume 1. Gene Ha did the art on the second. Nicola Scott did the art on the third, all written by Kelly Sue DeConnick. It's a reimagining, it's a retelling of the Amazons and Wonder Woman. And, Kelly Sue has plans for 9 chapters. I hope we get all 9. This collects the first 3. Absolutely amazing. Can't recommend it highly enough. There's a hardcover and a soft cover that come out this week. So whatever your preference there. And then History of the DC Universe. This was another absolutely fantastic book. It's Marv Wolfman and George Perez. This came out right after Crisis on Infinite Earths, and it's kind of a different look. A lot of the stuff that's in here may not necessarily be in continuity or 100% accurate now, but again, 2 creators at the height of their powers, Wolfman and Perez. So, and it's got this version has a cool new Alex Ross cover. So, if you're curious, check that out. Batman Fortress, we just mentioned it. Derek Robertson's last project at DC Comics. Gary Whitta, the screenwriter, is the writer. It was a heck of a lot of fun. Issues 1 through 8 of that series are all collected. And then there's also a fan club Batman Squad graphic novel, which is in the YA line of DC, is also hitting comic shops this week. So, all right, Rocky, putting you on the spot here. What was your book of the week?
Well, you're not really putting me on the spot. It was fairly easy for me, and that is the Flash. It was Flash 800. It was a no brainer for me. Even the Hunter Solomon story. I mean, it was good. It was even though I'm not a fan of the character, I can't deny that it was a good recap of the origin and introduces a new character. And Jeremy Adams' story was fantastic. And we did get a tease of Cy Spurrier's story, and even though I might have some concerns about it, I love Mike Deodato. He's one of my favorite artists right now. He's got an AWA series called Red, I think Red Mask or something, or is it Red? Anyways, Red Zone, written by Cullen Bunn and art by Mike Deodato Jr., but it's really good. But in any event, Flash 800 all the way. So what about you?
Oh, tougher for me. I thought it would be a little tougher for you, man. The new talent showcase is definitely deserving of the pick. Better issue of Batman that we've had in quite a while. Peacemaker Try Hard again had me laughing out loud. Steelworks from Dorn really impressed me. I enjoyed Adventures of Superman, John Kent as well. But at the end of the day, I'm going to go with New Talent Showcase, the Milestone Initiative. I know a lot of these creators that, they might be a little inexperienced, but they poured their heart and soul into these stories. It really showed how hard they worked. So I'm going to give my nod for Book of the Week to Milestone this week. So, all right. Well, that does it for this episode, everybody. Appreciate you joining us as always. Don't forget to head over to YouTube if you're listening to the audio-only version. Subscribe to Rocky's channel. Comic Space Boom, ! Once you're there, you know what to do. Subscribe, read the notification bell. Leave some comments, like this video. We love interacting over there. If you check us out on Comic Boom YouTube channel all the time and you're curious about the other audio-only content from the Comic Source, just go to wherever you get your podcast, search for the Comic Source, and subscribe. So we appreciate the support as always, everyone, and we'll talk to you next time.
Catch you later.